Hello, this is the final module of our Start Here section of the course, meaning after this module you should have a pretty good idea as to what this course is all about, and you should be really ready to dive into the 4 components without too many surprises, if any. This module will look at how you will be assessed. Okay. As you have hopefully come to understand, this course has a major goal of trying to unify your overall school experience as you look to develop in the learner profile, use what you're learning to make the world a better place, and develop a more intercultural mindset to what is happening around you. Because of this, our approach to this personal and professional skills course will be based on a few different components. The first component will be through standards-based grading. Standards-based grading is less about learning something and taking a quiz to see how much you've learned. It's more about developing skills over time. Here's a look at a standards-based rubric. Notice that the rubric is in 4 parts, but each part contains in it parts of our 10-point scale. So if you're at the beginning level, a 1 or 2 on our 10-point scale, it means you know nothing about the skill at all, really, and you don't really understand what to do within that skill. If you're at the approaching level, like a 3, 4, 5 on the 10-point scale, it means you're demonstrating some command of this skill, but you still need a lot of help, advice, or guidance from others in order to actually do it. I mean, imagine like you know how to ride a bicycle, but you still have trouble with balance and maybe self-confidence. If you're in the meeting level, a 6 or a 7 or 8 on our 10-point scale, it means that you are demonstrating a clear understanding of the skill embedded there and that you're doing pretty well independently within it. For many of us, we may actually stop here when it comes to mastery. If you're in the extending level, this would be a 9 or a 10 on your 10-point scale. It means you can actually transfer what you've learned here to a different setting. So, for example, if you've been practicing how to use reflection to improve your learning in English class, and you've been successful in that, and then you find you can actually transfer those skills over to succeed in math class as well, and you do it, well, then you should rate yourself as a 9 or a 10. You've been doing extension. Additionally, you could also be so fluent with the skill that you actually become a coach for somebody else, and that would be another reason to rate yourself a 9 or a 10. By using this standards-based approach, you can easily see how there will be value over time in holding on to skills. So, like, let's say I'm a 5 and I want to keep workshopping and improving something, or you say, hey, I'm a 5 and I think that's cool, but I really want to move on to something else and, some interpersonal skill, and I want to develop something else. That's the beauty of this standards-based grading. You can kind of say, okay, this is where I've learned all I want to learn here, and now I'm going to move on and learn something else. This brings me to an important aspect of standards-based grading, which is reflection. So when you go to submit your updated numbers on your standards, you will also include 2 things, an artifact and a reflection. An artifact is simply something that represents your work on the skill. For instance, if I was trying to grow as a reflective student in my English class, maybe as part of this I was keeping a daily journal to talk about how I'm doing in that class in regard to writing and reading and speaking out loud. Then maybe I would share a page from that journal as my artifact. An artifact can also be something like a photograph or just anything you've created in class that serves as evidence for you leaning into that skill building. And along with the artifact, you'll include a short reflection that embraces standard analytical writing for the IB program, which means you'll be making a claim, hey, I think I'm a 5 on this skill. You'll present your evidence that backs up that claim. You'll talk about your artifact, and then you'll provide some analysis that will help me understand how that evidence proves your claim. So the last component of this standards-based grading is conferencing. So we're going to regularly meet and talk about how you're doing, and then either me or a classmate or our whole group will have the opportunity to ask you some clarifying questions about your skill growth and the method for how you accomplished it. I'm including in this module a video I made way back in 2018 where I presented these very ideas to teachers in a format called a Google Slam. Every month you can update your progress on 5 skills. One will be from the learner profile, one will be from your personal and professional skills modules, one will be from your language development, one will be for your service learning component, and the last one, as you can probably guess, will be related to your reflective project. These monthly reflections will give you a chance to not only update us on how you're doing, but it will also give you a chance to change things up for the next month. You can keep skills you want to keep growing in, and you can get rid of skills you feel like you've finished up, and then you can add new skills in that you're excited to try out. Okay, so when I say we will use standards-based grading to figure out your grade in the class, now you kind of know more about what that means. Selecting 5 skills a month, working on them independently, grabbing artifacts to show your growth, reflecting on those artifacts, and conferencing. We also have as a requirement in this class hours. You have to put in 75 hours minimum in year 1. So we'll be keeping track of that as part of your grade. So that's really about 8 hours every 6 weeks, if you want to think about it that way. So that's a good way I'll come up with that grade component. Now, like I said, sometimes you'll be coming in more because you'll be busy later on in the year doing something else. So if you're putting in extra hours because you're going to do less later on, you just keep me in the loop and let me know what's going on. And as long as we're true to each other and keeping track of those 75 hours, we should be in good shape. Additionally, we'll have a series of modules to work through. There are more modules than time will allow. For instance, there's 10 learner profile traits. So let's say you spend a month on each trait, you're going to end up with 2 traits you didn't even get to. So you're going to have a lot of things you'll be learning, but you then will have to pick and choose what you want to learn more deeply through the standards-based grading. Just remember that when it comes to the modules, you have to spend 25 hours this first year on language development, 40 hours this year on service learning, and 45 hours on personal and professional skills, and 25 hours on your reflective project. So when I sit down and assess how you're doing overall in your forward movement in the modules, we're going to use those benchmarks. Finally, as I mentioned early on, we'll be having some whole group events. Your participation in these will be a factor in your grade, and you also know there's a big service learning presentation at the end of the year, and that will be I'd say major grade for the last quarter. Thank you very much. I know that was a lot of information. This is a non-traditional class with non-traditional assessment systems, and although many schools use standards-based learning, and indeed you can even read about schools that have given up on A, B, C, D, and F entirely to lean into just standards-based grading, I understand that it's still kind of rare as you go from traditional school to traditional school, and you may have never been in a class that's used standards-based grading before quite like this. So what I want you to do as your module is just go for a walk or get outside a little bit, take it easy, let all this stuff soak in, even take a day off before you come back and do any whole group activities. But come back, do the whole group activity, and give us a chance to see what you're excited about by this assessment approach and what questions you have. Thank you again very much for taking the time to learn about how I plan to assess you in this class. Thanks.